Hi, and welcome to this very special episode of This Writer's Life. There have been 20 episodes on the channel so far, and one of my very favorite parts of this project is having on a creative advice giver who I admire to give you advice from their process for your writing process. So to celebrate all of them and these 20 episodes, you are about to see a compilation of all 20 advice givers and parts of their advice for you. I encourage you to take a listen to all of the advice on this episode and then see if there is perhaps one piece of advice that really sticks out to you. Maybe it feels like it's speaking directly to you. And then you can write it down somewhere, maybe in your writing notebook. Read it every day for a week and let it really encourage, inspire, and fuel you in your own writing process. And also maybe it will help you with some obstacle that you might be facing. So I hope that you are as inspired by these creative advice givers and what they have to say as I am.
Be fearless in your ideas. Don't think about what is already out there, but really try to be your authentic self and share your voice, because I'm sure it's really special.
My best advice to you is to start with ideas and topics that you love and feel passionate about. And that can really mean starting by writing about a person that you know, or maybe a person that you admire but you've never met. It could be a place that you've always wanted to go to, or a place that you've been and you just found so amazing. It could be a time of year, it could be a holiday, a color, a hobby. Start with what you love and you can't go wrong with that.
Allow yourself time and space to get there. When I take on a creative project, like my old self I would kind of try to edit myself right away, but I've found over the years that what's actually worked better is to just put pen to paper, let it rip, anything that comes to mind, just get it out there, sketch it out, whatever, write it out, and then take a break and remove myself physically. I'll go do yoga, I'll take a walk, ride my bike, whatever, and then I'll come back. And what I found is what's happening is my mind was actually still processing those things, and then I come back with a fresh set of eyes, then you begin your edit.
Don't be so quick to judge your own work. Sometimes when we're creating, we're coming up with stuff that's so brand new, so fresh, so original, that we don't even know how to look at it ourselves. So it's easy to look at it and think, this isn't so good. You throw it in the trash and you keep moving. But you could be throwing something wonderful away. There's a famous story. The writer Stephen King, when he was a struggling, unknown writer, he threw the first 3 pages of something he wrote into the trash. And his wife, Tabitha, who was also a writer, found those pages in the trash, fished them out, gave them back to Stephen King, and encouraged him to keep writing. Now those 3 pages would eventually become his first published novel, Carrie. And Carrie will also be turned into a classic horror movie by the great director Brian De Palma. And we're still watching Stephen King movies to this day. So don't be so quick to judge your own work. You may be writing something fresh, new, and original.
Go someplace that I don't normally go and spend time there writing, and just let that writing somehow be informed by the place that I am. That place could be someplace that's like a playground or the woods, but it could also just be someplace in your house that you don't usually go to, like maybe even sitting inside of your closet. And then suddenly all of these ideas come to your mind of things that could happen in that place that you're in. It's a good exercise and a way of becoming inspired by different places.
Writing begins with brainstorming. Create an idea notebook. Keep a pen handy. Jot down your ideas. Over time, look for recurring patterns and motifs. In this way, you can identify your next great idea.
Just keep writing. Don't be afraid of making mistakes or not being good enough. As you write, you get better and better, and you can find your own tone. We all crave good stories, so I can't wait to read your stories.
Something that I've learned very recently that I think is really good advice, that you should work on it every day. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to write a chapter or say 2,000 words every single day. But what it does mean is living life and constantly thinking about your writing and your work and the stories that you want to tell. Recently I got a new writer's notebook. I've had several in the past few years. But inside here I write down everything that I'm thinking about stories, essentially. Sometimes I'll write down quotes that I find in books that I really like. I have tickets in here, maps, things that from my everyday life that inspire me, and eventually I will write down things that lines, characters from stories that I am writing currently. So I would recommend, just a very cheap notebook and a pencil, and that's really all you need.
One piece of advice that I can offer is you want to do a little bit of minor planning when you first start your project. So what Liz and I do is we'll generally start with a concept, draw a little sketch out, and then when we're happy with the idea of it, we just sort of go to town, and we allow a lot of room for mistakes and errors to happen, and to just allow the process to grow naturally so that we never feel too confined or too constrained with what we're doing.
You're gonna just make a lot of stuff that you might not be happy with or you might not like as your final product, but that's completely okay because that's part of the process. And sometimes making something that you consider bad can kind of get your creative juices flowing.
My creative self is, I think, impulsive and emotional, and when I get an idea, I like to be able to just kind of sit down and work on it, sometimes for a really long period of time of focused concentration. And so what I try to do is make the space and time for that to happen when it does happen.
One thing that I like to remind myself as I'm working is that if you do something once, you can do it again. Sometimes I'm working on something, drawing a page, and I'm focusing a lot on one part of it. So maybe it's the face, facial expressions, or hair, or a hand, and you can get one part of it just perfect. And then when you step back, you realize that the whole piece in and of itself isn't working at all. Maybe you've been looking too close at one part of your page, or this can be applied to writing as well. Looking too close and not taking the time to step back and looking at the work as a whole and making sure the whole thing works together. And if it's not working together, not being afraid of just scrapping it and starting over and knowing that the next time you do it, it's going to be even better. And that's why I like to kind of surround myself with past works that I've done to remind myself, I know I can do this. I've done it before. Don't settle for anything that's like less than what you are going to be happy with. But if it's not working, don't force it, and just try again.
If there's anything I've learned from my creative process, it's to believe in yourself. I always wanted to write a book when I was younger, but it wasn't something that I ever thought I would actually be able to do. When I was younger, I liked writing funny poems, I liked reading books, but when it came to actually writing, I didn't think that I was good or that I had anything interesting to say. What I've learned over the years is that there's no one else like me, just like there's no one else like you. What I have in my life, from the way I've grown up, to the people I've met, to my family, to the crazy things that have happened, make me uniquely me. Those are really great things to write about or to put into your ideas. You could write about anything that you really, really like. Like for me, I love eating gummy bears. That could be something fun that your character likes to do. Or it could be something that you really, really dislike. Or just something that reminds you of your family, a story, something about your history or your heritage, or just the place that you live in. Those are all really interesting, unique things that are unique to you.
If you're ever stuck with writing, sometimes you just gotta go outside and get into life. Go take a walk, go to a park, go hang out with friends. Maybe just step away from your writing instrument, your computer, your notebook, and just go see something different. And that could totally inspire your writing. You might see a bird in the park flying around near the trees, and that might become a part of something in your story. Or you might hear a super interesting conversation that you're like, wow, that is pretty cool, and I could maybe use a little piece of that in my story too. Or you might see somebody who inspires a character. Sometimes just getting away from your writing instrument and getting into the world can ignite something inside of you. Write it. Whether it's pretty or not, sometimes people get stuck, very stuck, trying to create the perfect sentence or trying to create the perfect paragraph or the perfect story. And sometimes it's just not perfection. It's just getting it on the page finish and continuing the process again and again each day or however often you write, it's great to just get it out there and get it on the page and keep it going. That way, when you finally finish, you have a full story, and then you can go back and edit it or get it polished up later. And that's why you have a first draft, you have a second draft, or however many drafts you need to get the story exactly the way you'd like it. But it starts with putting something on the page and getting it going.
Honor your imagination. Let it run free and be wild. Have fun with your ideas because you don't know where they might land. There are no rules or wrong ideas in the idea phase. The onus is for you to nurture, experiment, and be observant and use your everyday experiences to find your voice and tell your story. Don't let anyone be a roadblock to your vision.
Somebody told me knowing what you love is really important in creativity. I didn't think much of it when I first heard it, but now I realize it is probably one of the most important advice I ever received. Knowing what you love is really important in creativity because that is how you ultimately develop your own voice. Knowing what you love is to know yourself. I don't think it's any different for photography or writing. So if you have something that you're interested in, and even if it has nothing to do with writing, I'd say go try it, enjoy it, and have fun with it. You might be surprised with what you discover about yourself.
I wanted to share with you some advice about one of the hardest things I find is creating characters and making them real. And I think that the more time that you can spend making the characters as real as you can in your imagination, the easier it becomes to write what they say, write what they do, write what they feel and what they think. One of the things I like to do to help me do that is to draw inspiration. And because I've been an artist as well as a writer, I like using visuals to do that. I find in using things like drawings and pictures and putting them up all over your walls as you write helps you to understand who they are.
My name is Jorge González and I do architecture. Architects design all types of things, since homes, apartments, hospital, office buildings, museums, bridges. If you like to play Legos, I have this Lego toy of the Burj Khalifa. The Burj Khalifa is one of the tallest buildings in the world. The height is around 3,000 feet. I also have this one here that you might recognize. This is one of the parts of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco that allows people to travel from one side to the city to the other part. For example, here, this is typical for houses in Croatia, and it's made of little pieces of stone, as you can see here. This is where people used to live over there. It's something really, really impressive. This one here is the Pearl Tower in Shanghai, in China. Also, something very, very important in China, they have a building in the shape of a dragon, and you know why? That's because dragons are very important in Chinese culture. For architects, need to make sure a building looks good and it's also comfortable, but also that helps the environment.
A bit of advice that I learned from my songwriting professor when I was learning to write songs, and the advice was that you might write 100 songs, but out of those 100 songs, it's okay if you only decide to share or ever perform just one. That gave me hope because I like to make a lot of things and try things and write new things and old things and reuse old things, and that's okay. It's okay to make a lot of things, and it's okay to only use one if you want.
For me, writing is really about rewriting. My first drafts are awful, and I have a really hard time with them, so I always say to myself, just get something on the page, and then when I can get in there and rewrite and edit and fine-tune over and over and over and over, and when I say over and over, I mean like lots and lots of times, months, sometimes a year. Take the time to rewrite. That's where you find the gems. And I'd also just like to say, when you're thinking about what you want to write about, just remember that no one is you, and your point of view is what will make the story come alive.
I do love to practice, and I want to show you one of my practices is I keep a journal, and I started it when I was 18. I had just begun my freshman year in college, and I remember I bought this little blue notebook, kind of like this. It was a little shinier. And then I sat down in one of the coffee shops on campus and I just started writing, whatever came to my mind. It felt so good. I really liked it that I decided to keep doing it. So I did it every single day, and I've been doing it for 30 years without missing a single day.